Hello everybody, it's that time again, it's the end of the month, so we're going to be talking about the albums I haven't been able to cover and put in this video. We'll be talking about the worst albums this month, the ones I'd put in the alright tier, and the best. So let's start off with the worst and see what we got. So starting off, we have the brand new one by Stand Atlantic, Was Here. I'm going to be honest, I wasn't a big fan of Stand Atlantic's new record. I feel while it's interesting they're playing with the more metalcore elements as Fear was sort of promising, I found this just to kind of be lost in the sound that they really want to create with it. I think it's interesting they had some singles like Criminal, which had Polaris, a metalcore band I'm a big fan of. Fatalism is one of my favourite records last year, and they're just been a consistently good band, and even that hasn't been able to bring much interest to me with the record. And then you have some other ones like the song that features Paris, which Girls, which in my opinion is one of the most underwhelming, weakest collabs, but it also shows the more experimentalness, because not everything's metalcore, but it pushes with a little bit more variety. I think pop-punk era of the band had a lot stronger sounds. I think lyrically, especially if you just dive into the first track, or the first few, it just feels kind of weak as well. I mean, you're wrong, I think instrumentally it sounds fine, production's pretty decent, and the vocals are great, but I just think the album has a lot of stuff that doesn't need to be there. It's a filler record, and an underwhelming one, so I'd have to give it a 2 out of 5, unfortunately. And then we're moving on to Left to Suffer, Leap of Death. Couldn't really get into this one. This one's cool that it has the Scary Pool Party feature twice. I think those are the two interesting tracks. I liked it, and also the one track we have is Pale Face Swiss as well, which in my opinion makes for one of the best tracks on the record. But while I do enjoy pretty much half the record, it's kind of bland, to say the least. I think them diving more into metalcore than just sticking to the deathcore, having a little bit of a softer palette, is fine, and I like what they offer, but it's not really as exciting or exhilarating in my opinion. You just kind of get some of the songs to feel a bit lighter and weaker. It doesn't really have as much identity as I wish it could do, but it's not the worst. It's probably one of the better weak records, but it's just a bit more of a lackluster album that I think could have had a bit more to it, but still some songs that do rip, that's for sure. And finally, the last bad album on the list is Palaye, Royale, Death or Glory. To me, this is just pretty weak. I think the only album that I actually really did not care for whatsoever. I think this new direction for this more poppy mainstream sound could work, but lyrically it's awful. I don't like the fact it goes into serious topics like mental health to then go into tracks that just feel like the lead singer's talking about how aroused he is, or oh yeah, cancel me if you dare. It's just stuff like that just really just feels stupid and incomplete. More importantly, this album is quite short as it is, and it feels like this filler, and I really did not care going into it. There's a lot of stuff that just felt pretty barren. The production's not that great. The instrumentals just literally almost have little life into it. It's just kind of a mess of a record. It is pretty disappointing. It is an album I just can't get back into, and again, also a 2 out of 5. All of these were 2 out of 5s, so they weren't the worst, but Palaye Royale was sort of teetering to a lower rating. And since that's all the worst tracks, we're going to go on to the worst albums. We're going to go on to the alright ones, starting off with Siamese Elements. I do like what Siamese had to offer, but the big issue stems from the fact that a lot of the songs just do the same structure of sounding like Bad Omens during the Concrete Jungle soundtrack era, where the industrial sound was a lot more prominent, which was interesting for Bad Omens because it kind of pushed away from the Bring Me the Horizon sort of sound when it comes to their metalcore to hard rock. But this was just fine at best. There was some songs I like, Predator, and Chemicals as well, tracks I have talked about, Chemistry, not Chemicals. And then there were some interesting things, but I honestly found the God Is a Woman Ariana Grande cover to be dreadful, and the final track was good up until we had to hear the TikTok text-to-speech voice, which is horrendous, and I don't know why you'd incorporate that into this. To to me, it's a decent album. It's just a lot of the songs kind of mesh together and sound the same to me, so I haven't really got much of a interest to really go into it. And then Dark Tranquillity, Endtime Signals is the other alright record. It's fine. I think Dark Tranquillity have released some decent to good stuff in the past, but I just found this to kind of be a bit underwhelming. The sound's there, I like the vocals, I like the instrumentation, I just like the way everything's kind of structured, but it just feels like something doesn't really hit the same way as some of their earlier stuff does. It's a record that I want to get into more, but I just don't see myself really wanting to at the same time. It's one of those albums I want to like, but I just don't like it as much as I do. But it's not a bad record by all means, which is why I think it's just alright. It's a whatever listen in my opinion. And that is all the alright albums. Let's dive into the best stuff. Start off with Oceano, Living Chaos. These guys are insane, and one of my favourite deathcore releases in a while. This album rips to shreds, with tracks like Into the Flames having some of the most brutal, intense breakdowns. I love the structure, and the production is insane. The double pedal is awesome. The guitar just fucking rip. It's an incredible record, and I love this one a lot. I haven't found deathcore to be as exhilarating. There's been some good stuff this year, but this probably is one of my favourites we've had. Even the singles like Wounds Never Healed just go hard, and then The Price of Pain as well is great. Mass Produce, another banger. It's all good. It's literally a phenomenal record, but I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 because I just feel like I wish there was a little more to it. It's definitely a shorter album, and it kind of wants you wanting more, but at the same time I still think it's enough meat to enjoy, so it's not crazy good, but there's a lot of insane good moments that just brings you in. I haven't had a deathcore album do that to me since Chelsea Grin Left to Suffer. Chelsea Grin Suffer in Heaven. I'm really stumbling today. But yeah, this is a really good record. I love this one so much. But yeah, 4 out of 5. We have the new one by Nails, Every Bridge Burning, a band that plays with hardcore punk elements and grindcore. An interesting combo, and I think they do a good job. It's not my personal favourite record from Nails, it's not my personal favourite album in grindcore, but what they do here is great. Blast by blast, they just give you some of the roughest instrumentation. It's heavy, it's meaty, and it's all fast paced like you'd expect with the genre. It's a fun listen. I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5. It's just a good album. I definitely recommend it. Alleviate's debut, DMNS, or Demons, as I'm pretty sure it's pronounced. It's good. I like it. It plays with deathcore and metalcore in a good genre blend. You have very heavy growls that just work tremendously, and then you also got the kind of softer, normal uncleans that didn't just go into just some absolute right screeches. I love how different this record is. It's got some melodic to it as well to give it a good mixture of between deathcore and metalcore. It's probably just semi-metal deathcore. It's a nice blend. I actually found this one to be good, but I think the latter half of the record just started to kind of lose a little bit of steam, which is it's kind of a shame because the first bunch of tracks are great, but I think overall the experience is still high, and even the weaker songs have got replayability to it, so I give it a 3.5 out of 5. It's another good album. Yours truly, Toxic, a pop punk artist, and I like this one a lot. They have a feature with Bloom, who did release their debut this year, and I reviewed it. Great track. There's a lot of good stuff as well on this record. I do think it's one of those cases where there's some good stuff, but it's not a consistently banger after banger record. I like the first couple of tracks, but then it does fizzle a bit, but then builds up and picks up again. It's great. The anime album art cover, I don't quite understand why the band wanted to choose it. It doesn't really fit, but I mean, yeah, still a good album. I give it a 3 out of 5. My least favourite of the best albums, but it's still good. It's still an album I can vibe with. And finally, we're ending off with AWOLNATION, The Phantom 5. Let's talk about an album I went in with low expectations because I never really listened to much AWOLNATION other than Megalith Symphony and Run. But after going back into those records and stumbling into the Phantom 5, I can definitely see that this is something that they try to, or at least Aaron Bruno tried to pander, or at least go back to the classic AWOLNATION fans, building up that electronic sound that's sort of been absent here and there. It was a huge part of why people liked the first two records, and to me this feels like they're making a softer but grand return. It's a fun album in my opinion, which is really odd because I had low expectations, just because I never really got into AWOLNATION too much, but I think this is an album that kind of roped me more into them, kind of being intrigued by what happens, and from what I've seen, it is one of the least liked records, and it's quite odd to say the least. I actually like a lot of it. Jump Sit Stand March is a fun, bouncy track, features Emily Anderson, the lead singer of the band Dear Sarah, I believe that's what the band's called. If I've pronounced it wrong, I'll just put the text on the screen. And I think I like it. I like the way it's structured. It's got this very ethereal sort of groove, and the chorus is just fun to hear. Then you get tracks like Party People, which is more bouncy, upbeat, definitely feels reminiscent of the classic era of the band when they were releasing tracks like Sail and Not Your Fault. Then they have a lot more variety with slower tracks like Barbarian, which was made into the latest single. A lot of good stuff. Bang Your Head's kind of a more upbeat rager of a track. It's a lot of stuff that I thought would be weak, but the electronic and the vocals, they do sound good, and I honestly gotta give AWOLNATION credit. This is an album that really pulled me in a lot more than I thought it would. I've talked so much about AWOLNATION than anything else on this record, because it's probably had the biggest impact. It's just a fun album. Even the slower stuff has got some great material, but the one big problem I kind of dislike with this record is City of Nowhere. It's a song that sounds like it's going to go somewhere and it just ends before it does, and I don't like when a song ends with fade out. It's kind of a bit of a ruin, but it's good. And the fact that they have track I Am Happy, which features Del the Funky Homo Sapien, if you don't know him, he's the rapper on Clint Eastwood and Rock the House, both grand iconic Gorilla songs, and also Captain Chicken, because he features on that one as well. And I like it. I think I'm Happy as a weird clunky chorus, the way it kind of just shifts into something else, talking about sunshine, but I still think the zaniness of this record's here, and I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 5. I've rambled so much about AWOLNATION, let's just wrap the video up. It's been an interesting month. We've had some pretty good stuff. We haven't had quite anything I think is top tier for the month, other than maybe 4 Years Strong being my favourite record of August, but we've definitely had one of the worst stinkers, and I've talked about it being Falling in Reverse, just how horrendous of a listen that is. But I'm looking forward to seeing what's coming up in September to November, because there's been a lot of promising, awesome releases, and we're diving closer to the end of the year, and there's been so many albums that are fighting for being some of my favourites, but we'll have to see where it goes. But that is everything. Hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next video.